Namaste, everyone, and welcome to this week's Pillai Center Weekly Wisdom. Today is the official kickoff of our Family and Lifestyle series, where I'll be calling in guests once a month to join us and teach us how to bring it all together. So most of us have very busy lives, bettering our health, bringing in new relationships, finding creative ways to bring in more money, and we want to balance all that with our quest for spiritual evolution. And so this will be a fun way to learn how to do some of that. Today, I'm talking about a topic that's really near and dear to my heart. So many members write in on a weekly basis and ask Dr. Pillai how they can contribute in a greater way to his mission of bringing heaven on earth. And as the Golden Age has opened us all up, he's finding more ways to bring us together as a community and to be able to do that. And even amongst our busy lives, if you're feeling the calling to do that, there's probably a reason. So joining me here today is Alice. Welcome, Alice.
Hi, thank you so much for having me today.
Yeah. So Alice is the director for Phonemic Intelligence Education, which she's going to tell us a little bit more about. And she's helping to bring that education to children all over the world. It's a brain-changing education. And so, Alice, if you could start off by telling us a little bit just about what phonemic intelligence is and the fundamentals of that type of brain-changing principle.
Sure, thank you. So I work with Tripura Foundation to share programs that integrate phonemic intelligence into the schools, and we have been using this brain-changing education for over 20 years already in India, over a decade in Mexico, and now in America it's been about 2 years. Phonemic intelligence is a phrase that Dr. Pillai coined based on sound, based on scientific brain-changing education. Okay, so first I think I'll just start by sharing with everyone what a phoneme is, because whenever we say this word, a lot of people don't know what it is. A phoneme is the smallest unit of sound in a word, and it's the smallest unit of distinguishable sound. So for example, in the word father, ah is a phoneme. And those of you who have studied with Dr. Pillai see that in a lot of his teachings he uses sound that we intone or say in different parts of the body that have a certain effect. What's so incredibly exciting about phonemic intelligence is that there's a science behind it. When we make certain sounds in different places, we are activating different parts of the brain. And I can go more into that, but so that's phonemic intelligence we can think of as sound equals intelligence. That by making certain sounds and having a certain awareness, there's a phrase phonemic awareness that we've seen for decades in education. This is even more specific. This is saying that by making certain sounds, we are creating intelligence. Different parts of the brain are activated and balanced, and it's very exciting because neuroscience is behind us and is proving why that's true. We know it to be true because we've been doing it for decades. We've been experiencing it with people, but to have the science behind it is very exciting.
Indeed. So what made me think of when you were talking was how this technique I know has been being used in the Hope Centers that Dr. Pillai has ongoing in India through the Tripura Foundation. So as this technique is spreading in a more global proportions, can you tell us how what you're doing now is a little bit different than what's going on in the Hope Centers in India?
Yes, absolutely. So what we've been doing in India is we've created a whole Hope Center, which actually speaks to what you said. I love to remember that it can stand for heaven on planet Earth. And these are centers where we've taken underprivileged children in some of the worst conditions in India, and we've created an entire curriculum for them. We give them food and sometimes clothing and supplies and give them a full education, including the sound technology. So that's what we've been doing there. Now, in that case, Tripura Foundation has created the center, and this is, we're in charge of the whole curriculum. What we're doing now that's different is we're going into schools. We're going into public schools, after-school programs, so places where curriculum already exists, and we're inviting them to do a pilot, which basically means we'll come in and teach them the core technique and ask that they practice the core technique regularly. There's a whole program that I can speak more about. But so the difference is we're putting phonemic intelligence into curriculum that already exists, and basically just giving people a taste of what this brain-changing education can do. So we have to be creative and innovative in ways that we speak to educators in schools, because we don't have full control over the Hope Center. So that's the main difference.
Okay, thank you. So you talked about some of these PI pilots that are being started in around the world. I know that they're in locations outside of India as well now. Can you tell us a little bit about what a PI coordinator who would be participating in those pilots would be doing, and what the nature of that role is?
Great. Well, a PI coordinator, a phonemic intelligence coordinator, would be somebody, like you said, who is feeling a calling to share this education. They would be the leader of the pilot. So essentially, they would be the person that would go to the school and present to the principal, to the teachers, and then teach the students. And so this needs to be someone that has a little time. For people with full-time jobs, it would be difficult to get to a school during the week. So it needs to be somebody that has maybe one day off or works part-time that can visit a school at school hours. And we've been doing a training with folks, so we have lots of materials that have been created already for you. So anybody that feels a calling to be a coordinator, we've got it all mapped out and scripted out how you have those conversations, and the process of integrating the core technique into their curriculum and into their day. So that's what a coordinator would do. That coordinator may or may not be the person that initiates the contact. For example, we have a Dr. Pillai student in Florida that had a lot of contacts with schools, and she invited us to go there to her schools that she had already made contact with, and we did the presentation, and we are the coordinators. Yeah, so that's that piece.
Okay. Okay, great. So we talked about ways that people can be involved in this. So if I'm a member, a Pillai Center member, and I want to become a coordinator, is this something that's going to take me a long time to learn? Is this something that's very similar to the foundational principles of other techniques that I've been using in Pillai Center programs or other teachings that I've heard from Dr. Pillai?
Mm-hmm. Well, learning the actual core technique, it's a less than 10-minute exercise. So it's very, very simple, which is lovely. And we have a manual, mapped out, as I said, that will teach someone who wants to be a coordinator what exactly to do. If we're looking at timing, I would say a 5 to 10 hour training time, meaning reading the whole manual, practicing the script, talking to us, getting mentorship from us on how to have that conversation and how to present. I would say we're looking at a 5 to 10 hour training, so to speak. This is a perfect time in July for, well, actually we're almost in August, to plant the seeds at schools. So if anyone is listening to this and feels a calling, this is the time to email us and let us know, because in school systems, at least in America, also I believe in Mexico, folks are coming back from vacation. The school year hasn't started yet, and it's a perfect time to introduce what we have to offer to them for the school year. I just want to also say at this time, one of the things that we are focusing on that's very important is schools with underprivileged children. One of the missions of Tripura Foundation, as you might know, is to eradicate poverty and hunger. And we really want to make this education available to students who might not have the privilege of certain kinds of education, and empower them with these tools. So we are being very specific right now because it's a free program that we're offering, and we want to really target those communities.
Okay, great.
I hope that answers the question.
It does. And so I wanted to revisit something you mentioned earlier, which was the principle of neuroscience and how that relates to this technique. I know Dr. Pillai is sharing so much recently about how there's fundamental scientific principles behind all of these sound techniques. So can you share a little bit how that's impacting the phonemic intelligence education?
Sure, yeah, it's very exciting. The first thing I'll say is the technique, practicing the technique, creates what's called a whole brain state, which is the balancing of the right and left hemispheres of the brain. You might know that, the right brain rules our creative side and our intuitive side, and the left brain is more logical and linear. And by practicing the sounds, the way that the sounds are directed and the specific parts that they're directed in create what's called a hemispheric synchronization. And so we're creating this whole brain balance. And what that means, to me, or in my experience, is creating a sense of calm and harmony between the two parts of us. And when we're looking at, children and students who are in a lot of anxiety from difficult situations like poverty or being undernourished, this is very, very important to help bring calm and peace to the brain so that they're able to even be present or focus in an educational situation. So it's a fundamental thing. The other scientific piece that's continuing to be explored, and again, we're just on the cusp of all the amazing research that's about to happen, and it is happening, but so far with Tripura and some of the research that's very exciting also specifically about the brain is when there have been several experiments where we've put EEGs on people's heads while they make these sounds. And one of the most exciting things is that this particular technique is activating a part of the brain that I just learned about. I'm not a neuroscientist. It's called the anterior cingulate, and it's a little part of the brain in between, right in the middle of the brain. And what we already know about the anterior cingulate is that it enhances and activates of the part of the brain that evokes compassion and empathy and therefore calm. It also regulates learning and memory. And what it's doing is it's slowing down that fight or flight mode, which happens in the amygdala, and it's activating this very specific part of the brain. And there's so much more to say about that because it was also what they found activating other parts of the brain. And so we're only, again, just learning how many parts of the brain it's actually going to affect. If I just speak practically for myself, I love fun facts and I love brain facts, and it's all very exciting, but knowing all that is one thing, and then experiencing it is another. So I know we live in a world where people want proof. They want proof. Does it work? Show me that it works. And the best proof that I've seen, both in students and teachers and in myself, is having the experience of it. So yeah, there's a lot I can say about it. Obviously, I get very excited about it.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit how teachers and students are responding. What are the types of feedback that you're getting? What kind of stories are you hearing? And I know that you're actually physically visiting and physically visiting some of those schools, and then hearing the feedback yourself. Can you see the difference in the kids when you go from one visit to the next?
Oh, absolutely. The difference in the energy in the room, it's profound. I mean, it's a huge shift. I would say, the feedback we're getting is people are delighted and they're curious and they're inspired. They want to know more about it. They practice the technique. They feel better. They feel calm. These are the kinds of things they say. They feel clear. They feel focused. And they want to know why. And then they want more. So, I would say 99.9% of the folks that have the experience of practicing the exercise want more and are inspired. We do have skeptics and we have folks who, don't want to do this. I mean, my view about integrating this phonemic intelligence, not only to, really, really help thousands of children who need it, but is also we're changing the culture and the climate around education. It's a very new thing to bring into a school, to ask people to close their eyes and to make sound and to wrap their head around why sound is going to help their brain. So I have met with a lot of, let's say, distorted faces looking at me like, what are you talking about? Because it's new. It's new to people. It's not really a part of the culture in America and in parts of Mexico. So I would say the feedback is extremely positive, and when we're met with negativity or resistance, we don't spend too much time with that. We have explanations for why it's important, and because it's still a pilot, we're still learning about what's working, what's not working. But I am pleased to say that folks are really like, what is this? And we want more, and so it's very exciting. I didn't really say anything about this. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I know that you have some volunteers that have already started as coordinators that are giving great feedback as well, and how it's affecting them on a personal level. You know, these people like our members who, want to do something and go deeper, and they're having fabulous results as well, just in their own personal lives by being involved in the work. When you and I talked earlier, there was a couple of ways that you could participate, because I know that there was a need for coordinators, but there was also a need to just kind of spread the word of mouth, and get it out there and make connections. And so maybe you can share a little bit with people, if they don't have the time or the ability to commit to being a coordinator, what else they can do to participate and help spread this education.
Absolutely. I would say there's three ways to participate. One is the coordinator, as you just said, which will involve a little more time and commitment. The second way is to be a volunteer with a coordinator. So if you're living in a city where someone has already started a pilot, or you can enroll somebody to start a pilot, you can just be the volunteer, which would require visiting the school one time a month. And at that time, you would visit all the classes, take some pictures, get some feedback. We have forms that we give out and a very specific protocol for the teachers and the students. So that volunteer position would be one time a month on a weekday when school is in session. And then the third way would be to connect us. To help connect us. You might be somebody that has no interest in this at all, but you have a best friend or a cousin or an aunt or somebody who knows a friend who knows a friend that is a wonderful teacher at a school that you think might be open to us doing a pilot there. A teacher, a principal, a district educational leader, anybody in a school system that might be able to help us. So it's, the three things are being a coordinator, being a volunteer, assisting a coordinator, and then connecting us in some way. And we can take over and try to find people there to help us.
Right. Okay, so that being said, do these schools, since these pilots are currently being run primarily in low-income school districts, so is that a requirement for starting a pilot?
At this point, it's on a case-by-case basis. That is the initial requirement, but there have been exceptions with, let's say, a school that might not necessarily be a Title I school, but needs special education. So, again, if anyone has an idea, please email us, and I'll give you that email, and let us know what your idea is, because there is some fluidity to it. Our biggest hope is that we help the most amount of children who are underprivileged, and then the bigger dream is that everyone has this education. There's no reason why every adult child, should have this education, but that is our mission. And of course, Tripura Foundation is raising money to help facilitate coordinators like me and whoever else to go and actually make this happen. There is some cost to it because we're offering it for free. So we're always looking for people to help us do that, so that we can bring the education to people who do not have the money, let's say, to pay for this education.
Right. Okay. How do we connect? I think there's a Phonemic Intelligence website, and there's some forum for getting started. Can you just let people know what that looks like?
Absolutely. Right now we have up on the web, we have two sites up. We have phonemicintelligence.org and we have phonemicintelligence.net, N-E-T. If you are interested in being a coordinator or participating in this way, go to phonemicintelligence.net, N-E-T, and on the home page, you'll find to the right a tab that says More Info. And under More Info is a volunteer questionnaire. And please just pull that up and answer those questions, and you'll be emailing it to us at pivolunteer at gmail. No, I'm sorry. pivolunteer at tripurafoundation.org. So just to review, you go to phonemicintelligence.net. More info, fill out the questionnaire, and email it back to us at pivolunteer@tripurafoundation.org. And we need to get on that. We have my personal email on there, but we're going to change that, and that information will be on the website, phonemicintelligence.net. Yeah, both are beautiful websites for different purposes.
Okay, great. And if it helps, when we're done with this Hangout and you're a member of the Pillai Center site, behind, just underneath the viewing window for the Hangout, and I'll type it in the chat box so that you can have it for future reference. Thank you so much, Alice, for joining me here today. It was a really beautiful excerpt on how this brain-changing education is being spread all over the world, and I hope that our members today are inspired that if you're feeling called to participate in Dr. Pillai's teachings in a greater way, this is just one of several opportunities that will come up throughout the rest of the year for you to do so. Please make sure that you don't let your fears or your logical brain get involved too much by at least exploring how you can participate. I know that I have a really busy life, and every time I think about integrating something new, I almost question it. Do I really have the time and the availability? But if you're feeling called, it's there for a reason. So thank you so much for everyone for joining us today, and we'll see you next week at Sunday on the same time. Namaste.